Hey, Uncle Mark.
Yeah.
I understand. Now, this is just a rumor, and I don't want and it's a very dirty, nasty rumor, but I heard through the grapevine that you
All right,
are
guilty as charged.
I heard that you were a gay. Is that true?
Oh,
Could that be true?
Oh, my God. What will my wife think? I'll have to tell you that story another time. But yes, it's true.
Laura doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We haven't told her about it.
It's true.
We all grew up in a religion that is traditionally not okay with that.
Uh-huh.
I would say it leans a little to the right of not okay with that. Right?
Yeah.
Ferociously anti that.
Right, depending on who you talk to and what moment in history you talk to them.
Right.
Because there have been these sort of dabbles into no, we're totally cool about it. It's not us, it's the Lord. We can't help it.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and as we'll discuss now, the attitude of the church towards the gays hasn't necessarily changed that much, but their attitude towards another population has improved? ?
Yeah, that's a big question mark.
Yeah. So something happened this last week in the Mormon church that has shocked the Mormon and ex-Mormon communities and ignited quite a debate online, and certainly at very uncomfortable dinner tables across Mormondom.
Yeah.
It was announced earlier this week in preparation for this weekend's general conference that the Mormon church was basically reversing a divinely mandated policy that took effect all the way back in November of 2015. So
Yeah, that long ago time.
way back when, sepia-toned better
Right,
times.
yeah, exactly. Life was a daguerreotype.
Yes, when kids played hoop and stick. Essentially, the Mormon church will no longer take out its 15th century disgust with gays and lesbians on innocent children.
Hooray!
Hooray! And if you think I'm being hyperbolic about that policy, as we'll discuss, I am not. And as what had better not come as a surprise to our listeners, your uncles have something to say about this.
Wow, brace yourself, everybody. This is going to be shocking.
We have an opinion about something Mormon.
Breaking news.
So first, let's start with how we got into this particular pool of bloodstained quicksand. The Mormon Church has been at the vanguard of fighting against same-sex marriage and indeed all LGBTQ issues going back to its origins, or oranges.
That was a Trump reference
You're
for
welcome.
those of you who don't get it. Yeah.
For example, and Uncle Mark, having grown up in the religion when it was far more homophobic than it is today, can certainly speak
outwardly.
to this.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Precisely.
demonstrably.
Now the hatred is at least cloaked in a smile.
Yes,
In
exactly.
love.
Back in 1995, for example, the Utah legislature passed a bill, the first in the nation, that banned Utah from recognizing same-sex marriages performed in other states or countries. Then in 2004, voters of this state overwhelmingly passed an amendment to the Constitution that defined marriage as a legal union between a man and a woman.
Yay.
Of course, we all remember in 2008, the Mormon Church went all in on backing Prop 8 in California, which outlawed same-sex marriage there.
Yeah.
Going so far as to have statements read from the pulpit to Mormons in California to donate their time and money to this political cause.
People were emptying out their retirement accounts.
That's right.
To stop the gays from marrying
In California.
Yeah.
And remember too that they did have the public face of the church doing that, but they also had a lot of black ops. Like that's been, there's all those leaked tapes of Mormon leadership saying set up front groups, don't let it be associated with us, pour money into them.
Right.
So it was shitty. It was shitty in the front door, shitty in the back door.
That's right. And although quickly struck down and now utterly moot, Prop 8 caused massive damage to families and communities in California. Basically those were very dark days. So then in 2013, 3 same-sex couples sued Utah in district court over the state's refusal to recognize same-sex marriages. The state argued that there was nothing wrong with enforcing the notion that marriage was for the express purpose of having kids.
Right.
No shit. That's what they argued.
Yeah.
The plaintiffs argued that this was all based on religious bullshit, and the plaintiffs won.
Hurrah.
Yes.
In June of 2014, the 10th Circuit Court upheld the district court. Then on October 6, 2014, the U.S. Supreme Court refused an appeal, from Utah's Palpatinian Mormon overlords, effectively legalizing same-sex marriage in Utah. So, Uncle Mark, I don't know if you want to talk about that day in your memory. I certainly remember it being one of my fondest memories.
Yeah, so that was, at 4:00 on a Friday night, I didn't realize I was going to be married at 7:00 on that Friday night. So I was much like a child bride. I was surprised by my marriage, but it was crazy. And Doug was with us, and we ran to the courthouse to see if we could get in line and be part of this history. And then, of course, we ran to the wrong courthouse, so we ran to the right one, and it was crazy, and there were hundreds of people in line, and it was hopeful and frightening, and we thought that the hammer was going to come down at any second, right? There were all these sheriffs there, and we're like, well, here comes the mace.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And the state, because they're stupid, were caught so flat-footed. There was nothing in the pipeline as far as a request for a stay. So I think, what was it?
Which was a standard thing. Like everybody knows if you're doing a court case like this, what you do is in the initial filing, you file for a stay and so that people can't just run off and get married while the courts are still deciding the thing, while the appeals still happen.
Right, but that's not what Judge Shelby did in this case. So the marriages were effective immediately.
Right,
and it was the Friday before Christmas, and it was fantastic and wonderful. And we went, we started getting out on social media, and our random friends started showing up. And the mayor of Salt Lake married me and my husband, and he was wearing the most obnoxious Christmas sweater you've ever seen. And that picture of our particular wedding and the mayor ended up on the front page of the local newspaper that Sunday. So it was quite a thing, and it was an amazing thing to be part of.
And it was. I remember, there were so many couples in line. There was. I don't know if you remember, Mark. There was that elderly lesbian couple, and one of the two was clearly in a bad way.
Yeah.
There to get married. Like, how could they have ever thought that they were going to get legally married in the state of fucking Utah?
Yeah, and one of them looked like she had been gotten out of her sick bed. Like, she was not in good shape, in sweats and a t-shirt and a walker and an oxygen tank.
That's right.
And but this is the casual cruelty of religion, and when it doesn't give a fuck about the woman in her deathbed who has no legal protection, her partnership with the person she loves is not formally recognized, so they're legal strangers.
That's
right.
Yeah.
The cruelty of that.
And that woman, for all we know, could have been estranged from her family, not wanted to see them ever again, and yet if she had died, her partner of however many years would have had no say, while her family could have just swooped in and just done what they wanted with her, with her stuff, with all that stuff.
Yeah, so, and that's why that's the huge motivation behind why I got married to my husband. Is because my family, who I've been estranged from 20 years, would suddenly be in charge if I became incapacitated, and they would not hesitate to completely erase the life I've made for myself.
The wake would have been at the Cracker Barrel. We all know it.
Yeah, at Chuckarama. So we're laughing about it, but it's really fucking sick, and that happened to people.
And that was a great day for all of us. Of course, it was not a very good day for the people who found that to be abhorrent or apostasy or whatever. Anyway, then the worst possible thing ever happened in June of 2015. When the U.S. Supreme Court struck down any and all bans on gay marriage from sea to shining sea, much to the consternation of the very first class of Slytherin that runs the Mormon Church, their mini-kingdom falls within those borders. So, having lost on this issue at every level and in every institutional forum in this country, and now facing the terrifying prospect that same-sex marriage was not only fully legal, but there wasn't fuck all he could do about it, LDS president and ghost of Goebbels' past, Thomas S. Monson, decided to try a new strategy. So in November of 2015, this is a mere 6 months after same-sex marriage became legal, Monson, then 88 years old,
and not of his of a right mind.
No, and
he had a head full of pudding at that time.
Right. Literally, like the rumor mill, and the church never acknowledged this, but the rumor mill had it that he was not competent
at that time. Any public appearance of him looked more like Weekend at Bernie's than anything else.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, he instituted this raft of policies that, among other things, added same-sex marriage to the list of sins that met the level of apostasy. That policy went on to say, and this is so, bear with me. This policy went on to say that the children of same-sex or same-gendered, as they called it, partnerships, whether married or not, may not receive a naming blessing. This was regardless of whether the child was from a previous relationship or adopted, and regardless of whether the birth parents or adopted parents gave consent. Furthermore, the children of these unholy unions were banned from baptism, confirmation, or any other level of participation in the religion, including missionary work, without the express consent of the first presidency.
That means this would have to go to literally the highest 3 guys in the whole church, which you can't get to.
No.
You can't. There's no way anybody's going to get to them.
No. How would you go about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a chain of command so thick, it's you're wading through molasses to even get to your stake president, let alone all the way up to the very tippity top.
Right.
Now,
and that is it is punishing children who have no fucking say in how their parents are constituted. Right? If your parent is a murderer, you can be baptized.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If your parent is in jail for the Holocaust, you can be baptized. Right?
Now there are some of our listeners who might be saying, this is good, right? We want fewer people baptized into this church.
Right.
But the problem is that, if you've got one, especially if they live in Utah, and you've got one LDS parent and one parent who has since come out of the closet, maybe and gotten married, that kid can't participate in the things that almost all of their family
And friends.
values as the highest order of things. This kid is just ostracized.
Well, and if you are a young Mormon and you may not have you're not 18 yet, so you can't stop going if you don't want to. There are certain rituals in the Mormon Church that if you don't participate in are scandalous, like taking the sacrament. So there is a way out of this for some kids. When they turn 18, they have to turn 18. They can petition to have these rituals performed and gain entrance into the church. But they had to meet certain criteria, and this is real. I'm not making this up. These children had to commit to live Mormon doctrine. They had to specifically disavow the practice of same-gender cohabitation and marriage, and could not live with either or both of their parents that may have been in such a relationship.
You had to denounce your parents.
Yeah, you had to denounce their lifestyle, and you had to denounce them as being evil.
And you couldn't live with them anymore. You had to move the fuck out.
Right.
So if the daughter of a same-sex couple wanted to serve a mission, she had to convince her adult male stake president that she was sufficiently disgusted by her parents' sinfulness, disavow their existence, all the while describing in detail how she might have felt funny in the shower the other day.
Right.
This is highly problematic. Not only does this fly in the face of Mormonism's second article of faith, which reads, "We believe that all men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgression," but it also flies in the face of any sense of decency, decorum, or fucking human compassion.
Right. It's Monson looked at North Korea and how families are torn apart by the government there and said, yes, let's get some of that over here.
Yeah. And we'll never know if this sprang directly from the mind of Monson, who, as we mentioned a second ago, was addled, to say the least, or if this was a collective gross out by the rest of the assembled Skeksis. Right. But, I think let's take it as a given that Monson wasn't alone in thinking that butt stuff was evil. So here, for example, is now prophet, but then Apostle Russell M. Nelson in February of 2016.
A medical doctor.
Yeah, that's right. Mere months after this policy was announced, in the full light of what a PR disaster it turned out to be, Nelson was dispatched to defend the policy at BYU Hawaii, presumably because President Monson was busy translating it into German, and said the following, quote, "Each of us during that sacred moment felt a spiritual confirmation. You may not always understand every declaration of a living prophet," he added, "but when you know a prophet is a prophet, you can approach the Lord in humility and faith and ask for your own witness about whatever the prophet has proclaimed."
Yeah, this is where they start digging.
Yeah.
And keep digging and digging and digging. The problem that, it's a double-edged sword, this whole living prophet with a direct line to God thing.
Yeah.
Because because what's nice if you're the prophet is that you can say any goddamn thing you want and can't nobody say no.
That's right.
Nobody gets to say, let's put this to a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, on the other side, if you do that, if you go all in, there may be
fucked.
a problem down the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
You're fucked because that
Especially
cannot,
what you-
it can never
yeah.
not be true.
Yeah.
Right.
Or can it?
Yeah.
Doug, can it not be true?
Can it not be
Is
true?
it possible?
It's let's talk about that. But before we get to that, there's another foreseeable consequence of this policy that is worth mentioning. Not just the teen suicide, not just the tearing apart of families. This specifically is that. Many active Mormons at the time, this is a couple years ago, who had LGBTQ family and friends, were forced into a serious crisis of faith, namely, how to reconcile what is nakedly an evil, cruel, mean-spirited, and potentially lethal policy promulgated by your religion with the fact that you yourself may not be evil, cruel, or mean-spirited.
Right.
There are Mormons of this faith that 3.5 years ago felt that they had to turn their backs on nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, because God's own prophet was telling them they had to. That babies and children of same-sex couples were not worthy to be blessed or baptized in church, could not receive the sacrament, say a prayer, or bear their testimony until they turned 18 and denounced their own parents.
Fuckers.
Sorry.
Evil mother. And there's people that left the church. There were members who wanted to remain Mormons who were so disgusted by this and so heartsick by this that they left their fucking church as a result. And now it just got erased from the whiteboard.
That's right. And yeah, exactly. A mere 41 months later, after all of this damage and pain and suicide, we're all told, but never mind. And furthermore, we're supposed to applaud them for their progressivism and mercy.
Right.
Right.
In announcing this policy reversal, Apostle Dallin H. Oakes said that this policy is, quote, very positive and will help spread understanding, compassion, and love to, quote, affected families.
Fuckers.
I think infected families probably was a little too on the nose for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The amazing thing about this is that they reversed this policy. The quote that I saw going around was that was interesting was a Malcolm X quote. Did you guys see this? There was a Malcolm X quote that was going around that said, I'll paraphrase it because I don't have it in front of me, but it was something along the lines of, if you put a knife 9 inches into my back and you pull it out 6 inches, that's not progress.
that's right.
Right. An arsonist does not get credit for putting out a fire he started.
Or for grabbing your EpiPen on the way out the door of the burning building. Like, are you supposed to say thank you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so let's talk about why this happened, this change in this policy, why this reversal, and why it didn't.
Do you have an audio version of a spreadsheet? Can you show us that?
Exactly.
An Excel spreadsheet?
If you're righteous Mormon, you have to believe that God implemented this policy and then a mere 41 months later changed his mind. Or did he accomplish whatever policy this goal was meant to achieve? Did the right teen finally commit suicide? Believe what you want, but one thing is indisputable. This policy was an enormous black eye for the church.
Oh my God.
Huge PR.
Big. Yeah, this was an explosion.
That's right. And caused an alarming exodus of more moderate Mormons to both stop attending church, but to also have their names officially removed from the records. So as long as this policy was in place, it was going to continue to bleed an already injured church of revenue and of all-important white membership. So church leadership responded to the only thing that motivates them and the only language loud enough for their hearing aids to register bad quarterly sales reports.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and furthermore, what does this say about the idea of prophecy and revelation? What does it say about the character of Thomas S. Monson, who had been an apostle and prophet? Right.
Yeah.
Which are all huge problems. How do you square that circle?
Well,
right?
what's funny about this one? Because, look, there have been a lot of major policy reversals throughout Mormon history and throughout all churches' history. It's just a thing that happens. And, the big ones were things like black people being able to get the priesthood and go through the temple and, that sort of things that are on that level. And it was easy at that time for Mormons to say, well, the line that I always heard was, we get these things line upon line and precept upon precept, and maybe the world wasn't ready yet for this to be okay or whatever. You can't say that about a policy that's 3 years old.
Right.
You can't say the world wasn't quite ready yet. You know, the world needed to change more before this policy was brought in.
The world wasn't ready to blame children for the sins of their parents.
Until and now, okay, now the Lord has deemed the time to be ripe for this.
That's right.
You can't say that when it's 3 years.
No.
But also, also remember that the huge policy shifts that had enormous, profound effects on Mormonism and the community, doing away with polygamy in 1890 or 1890. 1890. I can't remember. Yeah, 1890, and then allowing blacks to have the priesthood in 1978 are the same thing. It is outside pressures being brought to bear on this fucking regressive institution and forcing it. Right? They're all the same. We're seeing the same thing happen. It just seems like it's been dressed up as a little policy tweak.
Right.
But it's the same thing. They're hemorrhaging members. They're losing money. Look, this is a mall development company that has found a way to be tax-free. Right. So whatever you have to do to protect that tax-exempt status and the bottom line, it's nothing more than that.
Yeah.
It's nothing fucking more than that. They could exist without one more tithing dollar coming in.
That's right. And back in episode 77, just weeks ago, I talked about why we shouldn't expect to see these kinds of changes. And while I'm shocked that we actually saw one, I was spot on about why this happened. Not to quote myself, but I did say that the church will never change from the inside, but that existential external forces like mass exoduses and bad press can force this institution to change.
Yeah.
But let's be clear about what this policy change is not. Homosexuality is not accepted by Mormons. Gay marriage is not accepted by Mormons. Teen suicides will continue to happen because of the attitude of this church towards LGBTQ teens.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, if you are a same-sex couple and you would like to have your child given a naming blessing, as we all know, this is a pretty important ritual for Mormons, you have to hand your child off to a group of men who still think you and your partner are abominations, but your baby's okay.
Right.
And they will bless and name it, not you.
But your baby's still a second-class citizen.
Right.
It's just that they can sit in the main room. They can sit in the main cabin. You can't.
I feel like that's a 1.5 class citizen. Come on. Let's be real.
Exactly. Some animals are more equal than others.
Right.
So I would just kind of wrap it up with this. I think we should keep this up. If you're out of the church but your name is on the records, maybe consider this a time to take your name off the records and tell them why. If you have friends and family that are troubled by this, that are still in the church, maybe it's time to encourage them to leave and tell them why. They listen to that kind of a language, and nothing else.
It's tricky. It's I don't know. Figuring out what to do in these scenarios is a tricky one. Getting your name taken off the rolls is even tricky because people's families find out and they can be alienating their families.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I did it.
Look,
yeah,
I mean,
we've all done it.
Let me wrap up with this. Is it better that this policy has been changed? Yes. From the perspective of harm reduction, this is an improvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this should no way exclude the church from what it's done. It shouldn't exonerate the church from the actions it took 3.5 years ago. They just did something so onerous.
If anything, it calls into question the entire concept of prophet revelation.
Correct. Exactly. It shows the man behind the curtain is just a fucking awful old geezer.
Yeah.
Who is acting on his, regressive even for the 1950s social ickiness mores. Right. It's so revealing of that. And also, I was reading earlier today, there's an estimate somebody made by examining some numbers, and they said they can't guarantee its accuracy, but this is as far as I can tell, this year or 2018 was the largest number of people withdrawing their names from the church ever at over 140,000.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So keep up the good work. I cannot recommend leaving enough. I think it is good for you. It will make your life better and the life of your family better. So I highly, highly recommend it.
All right, I got it out. I got it out of my system.
Yeah, good. Good. All right, well then let's move on.
All right, moving on.